The first anomaly was not the sickness, it was the soil itself. Samples taken from Sector 4 resisted compaction. Concrete poured in the morning would be found fractured by noon, as if the earth were breathing, expanding to reject the foreign weight. The engineers called it geological instability. The locals, the few who remained on the perimeter of the development, called it a boundary violation. They whispered of the na-nuno, the old man of the mound. But the surveyor, Elias, did not believe in boundaries he could not measure with a theodolite. He saw only an obstacle. The obstacle was a mound, rising 2 meters from the jungle floor. A cathedral of hardened mud and saliva, ancient and imposing. In the schematics for the new resort, this coordinate was designated for a swimming pool filtration system. To the indigenous laborers, it was a palace. They refused to approach it within 10 meters. They muttered the phrase, Tabi-tabi, a request for permission, a plea for safe passage whenever they passed its shadow. Elias found this superstition inefficient. On the schedule, the mound was a delay. In reality, it was a lock, and he was about to break it. On the afternoon of October 14th, the stalemate ended. Elias, frustrated by the crew's paralysis, took the controls of the excavator himself. There was no ritual, no offering of white chicken or unbranded alcohol, no whisper of tabi-tabi. There was only the hydraulic whine of the machine and the crunch of compressed earth. The destruction was absolute. The mound was leveled, the earth flattened, the ancient architecture ground into dust. Elias climbed down, satisfied with the reclaimed geometry of the site. He reported a successful clearance. He went home to his temporary quarters on the edge of the tree line. He felt nothing but the satisfaction of productivity. The silence that followed was heavy, not with peace, but with observation. The forest was no longer ignoring him, it was focusing. Day 1 post-clearance, Elias woke with a numbness in his left foot, the foot that had depressed the excavator's pedal. He dismissed it as fatigue. By evening, the numbness had evolved into a dull, throbbing heat. Day 2, the swelling began. It was not the swelling of an injury, distinct and localized. It was a fluid, shapeless expansion. His ankle disappeared, the skin stretched out, translucent and waxen. He applied ice. He took anti-inflammatories. The swelling ignored the chemistry. By the 3rd night, the fever arrived. It was not a fever of the blood, but of the mind. Elias reported vivid auditory hallucinations. He heard scratching inside the walls of his bungalow, rapid, scuttling movements, not rats, heavier and more deliberate. He told his superiors it was the heat, but when he looked in the mirror, the asymmetry of his face was undeniable. His jaw had shifted, his left eye drooped, weeping a thick, dark fluid. The doctors checked his vitals. Heart rate elevated, white blood count normal. They found no infection and no cause. At day 5, the medical evacuation was delayed by a sudden tropical storm that grounded all helicopters. Elias was isolated. The scratching in the walls ceased, replaced by a sound far more disturbing. Low, gravelly laughter coming from beneath the floorboards. Items in the house began to migrate. His keys, placed on the counter, were found in the soil outside. His boots were filled with wet mud, but the mud was not from the rain. It was dry, grainy and distinct, bonding earth of a termite mound. The duende were not merely haunting him, they were dismantling his reality. The locals who brought him food refused to enter the bungalow. They left the trays on the porch. They claimed the air inside smelled of sulfur and rotting roots. They told him he had been na-nuno cursed by the dwellers of the mound. They spoke of the black duende, the malevolent faction that will punish you. They said the restitution for a destroyed home is a destroyed body. Elias, a man of metrics and steel, began to beg for a priest. The locals shook their heads. This was outside the jurisdiction of the church. Day 7, the albulario arrived at dusk. He did not bring a Bible. He brought incense, salt, and a plate of offerings that smelled of copper. He performed the Tawaz ritual, dripping molten candle wax into a basin of water to read the diagnosis. The wax did not form a shapeless blob. It hardened into a precise, jagged topography. It looked exactly like the mound Elias had destroyed. The albulario recoiled. He extinguished the candle immediately. He told Elias that this was not a simple offense. It was a declaration of war. The spirits were not asking for an apology. They were exacting a toll. The swelling in Elias's body was not fluid. It was earth. He was being filled, grain by grain, replacing the biology they deemed forfeit. The healer attempted the pogtawad, the ritual of forgiveness. He placed the offerings at the site of the leveled mound: a white chicken, gold coins, sweet wine. He chanted the ancient apologies. He waited for a sign. The sign came on the 9th morning. The offerings were not eaten. They were petrified, turned to stone. The rejection was absolute. Elias could no longer speak. His throat had constricted, the tissue hardening like cured cement. He was found in his room, not in his bed, but in the corner, curled into a fetal position. His skin had taken on the texture of coarse sandpaper. He was not dead. His eyes moved, darting frantically, trapped inside a calcifying shell. When the evacuation helicopter finally arrived, they could not lift him. A man who weighed 80 kilograms a week prior now felt as heavy as a boulder. It took 4 men to drag him onto the stretcher. As they crossed the threshold of the bungalow, a sound erupted from the tree line, a chorus of high-pitched, mocking laughter that drowned out the rotor blades. Elias died in transit, or rather, his biology ceased to function. The autopsy report was redacted. The official cause of death was listed as acute scleroderma and rapid organ failure, but the mortician noted that his scalpel broke against the tissue of the heart. The resort project was abandoned 2 months later due to unresolvable foundation issues. The jungle reclaimed the clearing. The land does not forget a debt. It merely waits to collect the interest.